So as soon as you have 30 days, you're not seen as a short-term rental. So that means you don't have short-term rental tax. You don't have to get the special permit, all this kind of stuff. It's grouped in with a long-term rental. So people you kind of slide right under the radar there, but you're still able, if you negotiate contracts, to get the same rate you would get on a short-term rental with less headache, less turnover, less expense.
Welcome to the How to Scale Commercial Real Estate Show. Whether you are an active or passive investor, we'll teach you how to scale your real estate investing business into something big.
Zeona McIntyre went from $50,000 in debt to financially free in just 2 years with Airbnb. She's been an Airbnb host since 2012, and she teaches listeners how to achieve financial freedom through her real estate podcast, Invest to Fi. Zeona, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. Zeona, there's 3 questions I ask every guest who comes on the show in 90 seconds or less. Can you tell me, where did you start, where are you now, and how did you get there?
Whoa, 90 seconds or less. Okay. I started by doing rental arbitrage. That's what they call it now, where you essentially rent and re-rent out on Airbnb. So it's kind of like subletting. But that was a great try before you buy experience for me. So I got really hooked on Airbnb and then ended up making it a whole career. Over time, I managed in 5 states over 60 units. And now I just manage my own places. But I have 12 units in 4 states. So I have a little investing ADD. But yeah, I'm really into furnished rentals. So I help people achieve financial independence through short-term and medium-term rentals.
Tell me this. I mean, can you define for our audience the difference between a short-term and a medium-term rental?
Sure thing. So a short-term rental is under 30 days, and it ends up being usually 3 to 4 nights. You know, people just come for a short stint and go back home. Yep. A medium-term rental is over 30 days, and it's furnished. So it's kind of like just a longer short-term rental. Mm-hmm. And then this tends to be digital nomads, traveling nurses, people doing renovations in their homes. There's lots of tenants in that category.
Got it. And so you went from 60 units down to 12. In that 12, whatever you've done with those 12 in the short and medium term is enough to leave you financially independent.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's the cool thing about short-term rental versus long-term rental is that you can be financially independent or 1 or 2 places rather than needing like 20 to 40.
And so why did you back? I mean, obviously I could guess, but maybe I'll just hear it directly from you. Why did you go from having 60 down to 12 and just say that's all I need?
Because I was managing other people's. So that's the worst job. And so if it's just managing your own, there's a lot more in it for you. So I'm happy to manage my own properties, but I definitely don't want to do other people's anymore. But it was a great way to start. And what I tell people a lot is just like if you're doing wholesaling or flipping, co-hosting or managing properties is a way to build up some capital so you can go buy properties. I don't think it's where you want to stay.
Now, when you say manage, I'm thinking like, and I use Airbnb quite a bit when I travel. Of course, there's, you get there and there's a local property management company, but that's not what you were doing, or was it?
I was not local, but I was a property management company at the time. So luckily, so much of it's automated and so much of it happens online. And so the only people that needed to be local were the handyman or the cleaner.
Right. No, that's absolutely true. So you had those properties and you said, you know what, that's too much work. I'm going to offload that. I'm going to focus on my own. What are some of the key lessons that you would say that you've learned or things that you've done really well that other people should emulate in their medium or short-term rental business?
Yeah. I mean, I think really analyzing what markets to be in, like following the trends is something I've done really well. And that's worked in my favor. I think a lot of times people get stuck saying, okay, well, I can only invest within 4 hours of where I live. For some reason, that's some arbitrary number. I found that if you are more than like half an hour away, you're never going to see that property. So 4 hours doesn't mean anything. But yeah, people will get stuck in their neighborhood. And I think when you can open up and say, wow, the whole United States is my oyster and I can invest anywhere, then there's a lot more opportunity. So that's definitely something I've done.
How did you select the 12? I mean, the 12 properties spread across 4 states. It seems like if you went long in one market, you'd get 2 or 3, and then scaling that would be easier by staying in one market. Why did you go multiple markets?
Oh yeah, I'm not here to make my life easy. I know that. Yes, that would be the easy thing to do. But what is cool about it is it also gives me diversity, right? So if I had all my properties in one place and there was a fire or a tornado, I would be kind of out of luck. But so I've got them in different areas that helps. But I think what I've found is that different markets have different horizons where they're up and coming. And so that's kind of what's happened for me is like I hear something through working with a lot of investors. I do a lot of consulting and people will say, "Hey, I heard about this market. It seems really good." And then I go check it out and I'm like, "You're right. Let's buy there."
Mm.
Yeah.
Other than market selection, what are some common questions that people come to you when they are looking for consulting help on their business?
Yeah. So yeah, definitely market selection is a huge one. People just don't know where to start.
Mhm.
The other is around the management because there's so much automation. It really can be hands off. And so I think it's just important to learn all those skills so you're not burning yourself out.
Yeah, when you say learn those skills, what are some things that come to mind when you say management and learning those skills?
Yeah. So with short and medium term rentals, I have a series of, I think it's 7 emails that go out automatically to my guests. And that's at the time of booking, 2 days before showing up, maybe the day after check in, something like a day after that for trash. I've got all these things so that I'm getting ahead of the guests before they have questions for me. And then I don't have to communicate. So it seems like I'm really involved and I'm on top of it and I care about them, but it's all happening automatically.
That's awesome. Now, do you utilize more platforms? I had a conversation literally yesterday, and I think I talked to you about this a little bit pre-show. It's a house that used to be my office. It's next door to my house, and I've used it for an office for a couple of years. But I built a new office for me here at the back of my property, so now I've got an extra house next door. And I brought a video where it kind of specializes in the same thing as you do, is medium-term rentals. And he kind of worked out a series where he uses Airbnb, but then he also posts for that medium term rental on, I think he uses Zillow, where he posts it out there and says, hey, it's a furnished rental. And then he also works in tandem with that with insurance companies. So for get burnouts and things like that, or house burns down, they don't want to go to an apartment. The insurance company doesn't want to put them in an apartment. They don't want to board their dogs and take care of, paying for their meals out, for the next 9 months. And so they'll pay a very hefty premium for just a standard house. And so he's over here looking at it. He's like, man, this would be a perfect house. We could, absolutely turn this into a medium term rental. But he used a whole bunch of different, I'm getting to my question eventually. He used a bunch of different platforms from Airbnb to Zillow to some other stuff. Do you kind of use all those in as similar to that, or do you stick to one platform?
So we use Airbnb because there's a lot of seasonality there and you could get really high rates. And then we also use Furnish Finder, which is started with medical professionals, but now it's kind of exploded to all kinds of people looking for furnished rentals. So those are the platforms we use. But through Furnish Finder, we're also networking. And so this is something that's like kind of above and beyond. You definitely don't need to do this, but if you're trying to get the most cash flow you possibly can get, then it is worthwhile to network with the placement agencies and the insurance companies. And so once you kind of figure out who those couple of companies are in your area, I've got automated messaging like we already talked about, but I'll be like, hey, how you doing? How's a happy Easter? Just keeping in touch with you, And so we had a contract just recently where it's our slow season and we had no bookings. And then somebody booked us for an insurance. There was like a fire at a house. And we ended up getting $2,000 a month cash flow on this property that like we thought was just going to sit empty for this month. So feeling really excited, there's definitely some great options and opportunities through contracts. So if this manager really truly does contracts, that's a golden goose you got there.
Yeah, it is. I mean, in the numbers he was posting, because he owns about 10 of them here in the Memphis market at this point.
Nice.
Numbers he was posting, and that's all he does is insurance days. It he uses Airbnb to kind of fill in the gaps. So if he has an insurance day for 6 months and he collects an incredible 4 or 5 times normal monthly rent premium, but then he'll use Airbnb and he only sets it for 2 weeks out. So he'll go, okay, we're going to, between now and the end of what we're recording this October 25th. So say he doesn't have anybody coming in, he'll just set it 2 weeks to where he can always fill it with Airbnb for a couple of weeks, and then have it available for a longer term or medium term stay through the insurance company. I was like, well, that's pretty smart.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely love that.
So your area allows short-term rentals, right? So that's kind of like the thing, is that a lot of people move to medium term because they're not allowed to do short-term. So it's great that Memphis is still pretty open.
Yeah, it is. I mean, of course, they've cracked down in certain capacities on it, but yeah, it's still fairly open. Talk to me a little bit about that, where you say people are moving to medium term rentals. What are some kind of loopholes that people should be looking for, if any?
Yeah, so the great thing with the 30-day limit is that it's really a gray area. Right. So as soon as you have 30 days, you're not seen as a short-term rental. So that means you don't have short-term rental tax. You don't have to get the special permit, all this kind of stuff. It's grouped in with a long-term rental. So people you kind of slide right under the radar there, but you're still able, if you negotiate contracts, to get the same rate you would get on a short-term rental with less headache, less turnover, less expense. So it's kind of the win-win. It's gotten really popular recently.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is. And it's always funny. The entrepreneur finds, and I use the word loophole. I don't like the word loophole. I think anytime.
I like that word.
I call it government created market distortions, where it's like, for the person that's this looking, they're going to find the distortion created by the whatever rule. Let's go, okay, well, here's a distortion. Well, okay, well, now we can do this in a 30-day. And suddenly you've got a strategic advantage over somebody that's not paying attention. It's like, well, thanks for making it hard, but thank you is also for paving the way for me to make more money. Appreciate that. So yeah, got to go in with your eyes wide open. Tell me about automation. I mean, I know automation it's a buzzword. People are always talking about, well, automate, automate what you can't automate, delegate, blah, blah, blah. A lot of times I find automation becomes just more cumbersome than just picking up the phone. How have you found a way? And I'm not saying I'm right, but how have you found a way? Because clearly you love automation to make your business more automated, and what were kind of some of the learning curves or learning things along the way?
So I started Airbnb in 2012, before it was much of a thing. And then all the software came out in the next few years because people were like, oh, people are making all this money. Let's try to get them spend their money on us. Right. So it's really confusing when you start to look out and go, oh my God, there's hundreds of softwares. What do I actually need? Right. And so I only do 3. And so it's nice to kind of show people that you only need a couple. One of them is auto messaging. And so if people are interested in what I use, just reach out to me. The other, and that's calendar management. So if you're on a couple of websites, it kind of like brings it all in one place, which is helpful. Yeah. The second one is pricing software. And so this is only important if you are doing, like your property manager is going to do a little Airbnb in the middle. You don't want your price to be $100 a night every single night. You want it to be variable, because certain nights there's going to be like a college game or something going on. Weekends need to be higher. So that happens for you automatically, and you might tweak it, but it's good to know that it's there because it's seeing stuff that you're not seeing. Yeah. And then the third thing is, if you are doing the medium-term rental, you need to do leases and tenant screening. So there's a Veil that I use that's free, and they have the leases on there where you just fill in the blanks. You can e-sign. They really make it easy for you. So I try to do as much stuff that's quick and easy.
Absolutely. Is there a sweet spot? Like when you look at, if you were going to grow your business, or if you were going to add more properties to it, what are the characteristics that property has to have in order for you to buy it?
That's interesting. I think for medium-term rentals, I'm really liking 2 to 4 units. And the reason being is I like having either the ability to say, I'm going to have 2 units long-term and 2 units medium-term, just so you have something that's an anchor so that you're not fully vacant ever. And also just having one building, that you're not having to do the grass, because you're paying the utilities, you do the grass, you do the snow maintenance, right? So that kind of stuff is easier than having 10 single family homes when you've got more units in one place.
Yeah, no, I love the idea of a quadplex. That's really smart. I love any idea of splitting it half and half, long and medium term. What has investing done for you? You got your short-term rental business, medium-term rental business. You have found your financial freedom. What's life look like for you now?
I love to travel, and investing really allowed me to do that, because even today I can be halfway across the world and bookings come in through my phone, and I could just do all the same things that I would be doing here in Colorado. So it's super easy. So I think just giving you location freedom, time freedom is really important. And I'm just addicted personally to buying houses. So, like, just so people know, you could be with 2 to 4 properties. You don't need to have 10, 12. That's just a personal preference.
Got it. No, I love that. I love any business that you can run from anywhere in the world is a good business, certainly in my book. What are some risks? What are some things that you either see economically, politically? What are some risks in your model? And then how do you mitigate those?
I think moving to medium term is my way of mitigating that, because recently I've been seeing, okay, coming down the pike is this like recession, right? We've been talking about it forever. Is it coming? Is it coming? But with that, it just makes it so that people say, okay, if I normally fly by plane, I might do vacations by car instead, right? And if I normally do vacations by car, maybe I'm just going to do the only trips I have to do, and that's seeing family in an urban market. So I'm trying to keep my stuff a little bit more urban and a little bit longer stay because of that. Because I just think right now, short-term rental is just a little less, there's a little less demand, and it's temporary, but you got to change with the times.
Well, right. And I think one thing that we saw in 2020 that I'm not sure we expected was just the explosion in short-term rental demand. I mean,
Yeah.
you compare here October 25th, 2022 to say October 25th, 2019, are we still higher maybe in demand than what we were in 2019? Or is it just lower, compared to the 2020 demand?
Yeah, I would say that's interesting. I don't know exactly. I'd say we pretty close, and maybe just a touch under what 2019 was. And then 2020, there wasn't much until towards the end of the year, but 2021 was the biggest year in history for
Right.
short-term rentals. It was crazy. Will that come back? Yeah, probably once the recession's over. I think just so many people are saying, I don't know what's going to happen. So many things have swung out really wildly recently that they're like, let's just save our money and stay home for a minute. Just
Yeah.
hunker down.
Let's hunker down. And so you mitigate that risk by moving to the medium term rental model.
Yes, because these people have to travel. So it's kitchen remodels, it's fire or some kind of, something wrong that was insurance wise. It's going to be traveling nurses where that's their job. And traveling nurses have exploded since COVID. There's just such a need for medical professionals, especially after everyone got super burnt out and left the industry. And so that's going to continue. And there's a real shortage for medium term rentals. There's just not as many furnished rentals out there. So 100%, if you're going to do that one next door, I would do it.
Yeah,
Don't sit
absolutely.
on that.
No, I'm not. We're not sitting on it. I just thought it was very interesting. I'm like, oh, this is a fortunate timing. I get to interview somebody else that has a lot more experience in the industry than I do. If someone were starting out today, what would you say are some must like imperatives in their business in the medium and short term rental business?
Yeah. I mean, I think the automations are a must, because that really takes you from being like, I don't know, trapped in the business, right? You're a slave of your phone, of saying, well, now I have to respond within the hour. That's kind of required of me. But if I've got all these automations in place, you can have a message that goes out before the hour's up if you're not able to get to it.
Hmm.
So there's just things like that I think you need to try to do right away. And people think, oh, well, I only have one property, I don't need to do it. But you're making a big job for yourself if you're not doing that.
Right. Anything else come to mind?
Um, I mean, I think if anybody's interested in trying it out, the great thing about Airbnb is like you can literally leave for a weekend and put your house up. And if you don't like it, you can never do it again. But it's not like you have to go and spend $100,000 and buy a house and get all this furniture. Just try it.
Right. No, that's absolutely awesome. Anything else here, Zeona, that I should have asked you or that we should be thinking about as it pertains to your business model?
Well, I mean, I could talk about my book for a second. I just do a little shameless plug. I wrote a book with Bigger Pockets, so it's published through them. It's called 30-Day Stay, The Real Estate Investor's Guide to Mastering the Medium-Term Rental. And it's a real, it's a super thorough on how to just get started. And then it's got a lot of case studies, a lot of stories that I think make it really easy to learn and a fun read. So check it out.
Awesome. Where do we get a copy? I know you mentioned Bigger Pockets. Is that the best place to source that?
That's the best place. It's still pre-order. I'm not sure when this is launching, but it is biggerpockets.com/30-day stay. And if you use my name, Zeona, you'll get 10% off.
That's awesome. When is that supposed to go live?
They will start shipping them out November 10th.
November.
So that might be before we're out. Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be close to that.
Right around the corner.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So 30-day stay, you can find that on biggerpockets.com. Zeona, this has been awesome. I always love the story when someone says, look, I was in debt and then within 2 years I was financially free. That's a big, huge journey. One last question for you on that front. Is there any tools or resources as you achieve financial independence that really helped you kind of, organize that in such a way that you could say, hey, look, now I'm financially independent? Was there something you used? Was there a particular tool, an asset, a spreadsheet, a source?
That's interesting. I don't. I mean, I still kind of track all my expenses in Mint. I think it's nice to just be on top of what you're spending. I really like the blogger Mr. Money Mustache, and one of his recent posts, he did put kind of a tracker that said, I think the blog post is called "Why You Will Never Run Out of Money." And so if you're already being financially kind of like frugal and smart, and then if you own even 1 or 2 properties, it helps you project out on that spreadsheet, like what it's going to look like even when you're 100. And that gave me a lot of relief. I was like, oh, I'm so good. Probably going to die with $10 million. Like, you're fine. Don't stress.
Awesome. Yeah, because I mean that's a real question. Anytime
it is.
Financial independence, it's like more money doesn't necessarily solve the problem. I mean, as any winner of the lottery can probably attest, like more money doesn't necessarily make you financially independent. It might even just make you poorer. So I always was curious what tools and what kind of changes people made along the way as the more money came in, how they organized that. And you gave us some great resources there. Zeona, thank you for coming on the show today. Certainly appreciate your time and love your story there. If our listeners want to get in touch with you or learn more about you, what is the best way to do that?
So Instagram, if you're on there, I'm at Zeona McIntyre. I answer all my DMs, so look for me there. And then if you just want more podcasts to listen to, go to Investify. That's our podcast on house hacking to financial freedom.
That's awesome. And Investify is the number 2 FI. Yes. So invest the number 2 FI. That is awesome. Zeona, thank you again for your time today. Certainly appreciate it.
Thank you.